sometimes being bad is much more satisfying. Occasionally in video games we'll find ourselves getting to indulge in all things terrible and villainous when the tables are turned and we're placed in the shoes of a protagonist who doesn't have the most noble of intentions. And often it's really fun. So today we are counting down some of our favorites where that is exactly the case, with our list of the top 10 video games where you are the villain. Let's get to it. Starting us off in at number 10, Manhunt. Manhunt is a title that has been banned in a slew of different countries across the globe thanks to its controversial subject matter. Initially released in 2003 by Rockstar Games, it's a stealth-based psychological horror in which you play a prisoner on death row, who is executed but then wakes up to a reveal that his lethal injection was only a sedative. You are then forced to move throughout a part of an abandoned section of a city, murdering a gang of corrupt cops known as the Hoods, all while being filmed by CCTV. And that's just the start of the story. It gets more intense from there on out. Reviewers called it a no apologies assault on gaming standards at the time, and a barren, harsh, violent experience that was darkly comical. Up next at 9, Overlord. Released in 2007, Overlord is an action RPG where you assume the role of a resurrected warrior known only as the Overlord. Overlord can control hordes of gremlin-esque monsters called minions, and your goal is to travel around and defeat 7 corrupt ruling heroes in order to reclaim your rightful reign over all of their lands. Here's where it gets real fun though. The game has a mechanic referred to as a corruption feature, not dissimilar from the Fables titles, in which you can choose to be evil or really evil based on the decisions that you make in the game. Going back in history now to a retro title, and at this number we have Rampage. You know, the old arcade game that was recently adapted into a film starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Yeah, that one. The film took some liberties, needless to say. The arcade game though first came out in 1986 and allowed gamers to play as one of 3 giant monsters destroying a city, trying to survive an incoming onslaught of military forces while doing so. Your goal is to reduce the city to rubble, and that's pretty much it. But it's really fun. You get to play a giant ape and also a giant lizard, so sometimes simplicity is key. Up next at 7, Wario Land. Many of the titles on this list put you in the shoes of villains who are mass murderers, commit heinous crimes, or are just straight up bad people. But at this number that is not the case. Wario, traditionally seen as an antagonist of Nintendo's beloved Mario, has his own series of games that kicked off in 1994 where you can play as Wario, initially following his quest to get his own castle, which involves a whole plot to steal a statue and then sell it to Mario in order to get enough coin to buy said castle. As you can imagine, the plan encounters more than a few hiccups. The first game ended with Wario encountering a genie, and based on how many coins and treasure you collected, the kind of castle that you get will vary, with the biggest reward being a whole planet with Wario's face etched on its surface. Moving on to number 6, Shadow of the Colossus. One of the most highly praised games to come out in 2005 and later remastered in 2018, Shadow of the Colossus is a beautiful game in which you play as a young man named Wander, who enters a forbidden land with the goal of defeating 16 massive beings known as the Colossi. This is all an attempt to rescue a girl named Mono and bring her back to life. With minimalist landscape designs, immersive gameplay, and an emotional journey, the title has even been hailed as one of the greatest games of all time, and an example of video games as art. Now throughout its narrative, we eventually learn by the end of the title that Wander is believed to be a possessed man, and having killed the Colossi was a crime. It's bittersweet, because there's a nice little moment at the ending where you feel like, you know, Wander lives on, but no spoilers, friends. Go play it, it's good. And at number 5, Party Hard. Party Hard is an action stealth title in which you play a murderer hitting up various different parties, with the goal of stealthily murdering as many people as possible at each event, infiltrating without getting caught, just cause you want some peace and quiet. You can use an array of different techniques to take out partygoers, like poisoning drinks, setting traps, and even making loudspeakers explode. If an NPC catches you in the act or finds a dead body, the police will be called, and they are very difficult to outmaneuver. If too many police officers are killed, special forces will show up. So all in all, the goal is to get in, get the job done, and get out without having anyone notice. Moving on to number 4, Postal. An isometric top-down shooter released in 1997, Postal follows a character called the Postal Dude, who has been evicted from his home and believes that the US Air Force is releasing a poison gas in his town that only he is unaffected by. He ends up fighting his way to the Air Force base, with the goal of each level being to stay alive and kill a percentage of armed NPCs in order to progress. Now by the end of the game, after massacring those at the Air Force base, he attempts to shoot up an elementary school, but his weapons have no effect, causing him to have a mental breakdown that then leads to the reveal that he is inside of a mental asylum. Needless to say, Postal has gotten a lot of heat over the years, blamed for inspiring reckless and cruel behavior to those who have played it. It's even blamed for being a predecessor to our next number, and at 3, Hatred. Hatred is considered to be one of the most controversial video games ever released. A lot of people think it's vile. and to this day it is often seen as taboo thanks to its reckless nature. Hatred puts you in the shoes of a genocidal protagonist bent on taking as many lives as he possibly can before he himself is shot and killed. In an era where mass shootings, especially in schools, is still a foreboding issue on the minds of families across North America, it's a game that feels really insensitive, one that some would argue even promotes that kind of senseless behavior. Regardless of where you stand on that front, it's obvious that the playable character, who is literally known as the antagonist, is a villain, filled with hatred for humanity and wants nothing more than to complete his genocide crusade, with his ultimate goal being to blow up a nuclear facility near New York City to cause as much damage as possible. Yeah, that is grim. Moving on to something a little lighter, in at number 2, the Grand Theft Auto franchise. The entire GTA franchise is built upon gamers playing as protagonists that are morally questionable and commit crimes. You are playing as criminals, so technically speaking they are bad. Sure, they're dynamic characters, occasionally with more complex narratives than that, but they are also ethically questionable. So let's take a look at the most recent installment, GTA 5, which allowed you to take control of not only just one character, but 3, Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, and also Franklin's dog at one point, which is fun, but he's like not a protagonist, clearly. So Michael is retired when you start a game. He's part of a witness protection program, living a wealthy life in a mansion in Los Santos until Franklin and Trevor come along and bring him back into the game. Franklin, already working as a small-time criminal, befriends Michael, who takes him under his wing. And Trevor, well, he is bad crazy and has no moral compass whatsoever, something that made him an instant favorite amongst fans thanks to him being so freaking eccentric. He also straight up tortures a guy at one point, then drops him off at the airport once he's done, which had a whole lot of uptight individuals upset when the game was initially released. And finally, in at number 1, the God of War franchise. Well, one could argue that the most recent God of War title has redeemed protagonist Kratos' villainous past and straight up made his character a 3-dimensional one, if we are being honest. Up until that 2018 release, the protagonist of the series was one acting out of vengeance, seeking to destroy the gods with no mercy whatsoever, all because they killed his family and ruined his life. Fair enough. Kratos' quest seems almost ceaseless, and he never stops his hunt, pulling off some of the most violent and gory moments in video game history. Perhaps that's why the recent God of War was so beloved. Aside from exploring new game mechanics that made it a bit more of an RPG than a hack and slash title, the story was really good too. We have gone to witness Kratos' growth as a character, seen him as a father, and experienced a story that was largely informed by his past adventures and his obsession with revenge and rage. All in all, it's a really interesting franchise to kind of go through and explore and see his arc, even if the first couple of titles were just, you know, him being violent and killing a lot of things. Alright, there we have it, friends. What other characters that are villains do you love to play as? Let us know in those comments below. If you dug this video, spread the love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming for more lists just like this one. In the meantime though, thanks for watching, friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.